When do you hire them? And so I'm doing a video for you, Sonia. Thanks for the direct messaging. Thanks for your support and your viewership. So yeah, basically, the first person you're going to want to hire, or the permanently, is going to be somebody who helps you with your administration, your data entry. You know, for instance, in this group, there's loads and loads of people that join my group or you know, and you're going to want to ensure that these people get responded to, and you begin to build the relationship that you want with them. And this is also true with all of your leads outside of just this group, but really, you know, all of the people that you're building a relationship with, so that you're on track, right? This is also, you've got a lot of documentation you're creating and writing up, and they need to format it. You need to create your books and your packs for your workshops, your mastermind groups, and you know, there's a lot of paperwork, administration, and this can take a lot of time. So this administrative work, is really the first person you want to hire to handle that and help take that off of your back, making sure everything's formatted, it's correct, all your documentation is perfectly spelled and grammatically accurate. You know, sometimes in sales you are making a point and it's more spoken or passionate, so we allow for that, of course. But yeah, that's going to take a load off. It's not necessarily the first people you're going to bring on board, though, in terms of just general hiring, because I would imagine when you're going to be hiring vendors, obviously, different people to do work for you, if it's going to be, you know, helping you build your website. But those are just specific jobs, right? And then if they're not in the vendor category, they're going to be support at events when you're holding your mastermind, especially if you've got a lot of people, but you're going to have somebody who's going to be able to answer questions, assist you and the group by making sure the setup's correct, and any immediate needs or questions can be asked and answered. And you may very well find in those people, oh, there are the birds. I don't know if you heard them squawking. You can probably hear them squawking now. Yeah, lots of seagulls from the Great Salt Lake. So yeah, you're probably going to be pulling people from the those support team members. I know I've got several people that I am preparing to bring on board, at least, you know, to do events. I've got somebody who can run a large event. I've got people that can be my support team at events. So yeah, so I would imagine I'd be paying those guys. But beyond vendors, beyond support team at your mastermind events, really the first person you're going to want to bring on board is somebody that can take on some of the administrative burden, you know, some of the administrative to-dos, following up and seeing through paperwork being done and properly completed. So beyond that, right, the next person you're going to want to bring on is going to be somebody who's involved in service, because this is another big area of time for an executive. That is ensuring that your clients get serviced. Now, obviously, when you're delivering to them, you know, particularly in the beginning, it's going to be you doing the delivery, right? That's what they're paying for. But once your mastermind is done, and there are going to be calls coming in and requests being made, then you're going to want to make sure that you delegate the ongoing service to your clients, to a service assistant. Now, you know, it's pretty straightforward. If you buy a car and you deal with the salesman, and they show you around the car, especially when you have purchased it. They're going to tell you how to use the radio, etc., like that. But then any other work you do with that organization, with the dealership, is going to be through service. Makes total sense. And the salesperson, very often you are going to be the salesperson in your organization, is working and developing and selling and delivering to others. So that area of service can take up a great deal of time and prevent you from selling, prevent you from delivering, and we don't want that. So that would be the next area to hire somebody, would be to take over service of your customers and clients. Next is next, and this is the structure from where I worked at my old firm for financial advisors. We would help them put together a team, and the inspiration for some of what we're discussing here is the perfect team that my old boss Bill Good, who a 40-year veteran. I imagine if you guys come to one of my events, my big events, that he will speak at one of them. I would love to. It would be such an honor to have him there, and I imagine he will be happy to oblige. But anyway, Bill Good, veteran, 40 years in marketing, and in particular working with financial advisors. So he would recommend a team. He would talk about data entry, doing administration, the servicing of your clients, and then the third team member that he would discuss is sales, lead development, setting up appointments, and even in some cases making some sales, especially as they move along. But at first it's developing, lead development, and sales. So this is another area. Once you're relieved of that in full, let's say, ideally, but not likely to be entirely, for a while, then you have so much more time, right? So if you're in your group and there are different people that are engaged with you, then you want, and also you have meetings and you're capturing data about the individual. That needs to be done by an administrator, right? Making sure that you have a record of the conversation, making sure that some research is done and prep work and material is done, so that when you're meeting with a client, when you're meeting with a prospect particularly, but also with a client, that all that data is correct and available to you, and you're ready, and you know the areas that need to be addressed or discussed or taken up, and also the data is correct in your database on that person. It's accurate and up to date. So that's that administration person. Then again, the service person is making sure that people are getting serviced and their needs are being met, and documents or promised items, those are being sent out and that's being followed up on, and they're 100% happy and getting the service to the level to which they would expect from you, the gold standard of the knowledge business. And then the other person is going to be the lead development, doing a lot of the work with specific groups, connections, contacts, business contacts, your people as they become prospects, and move into or are developed into prospects and then into hot prospects for a meeting with you, typically the person who's going to be doing the presentation, where you would typically present and sell. As that person gets better and better and learns more and more and understands more and more and is more able to close, they're going to get their own lead developer, right? And then that's how you go. That's the way in which you're going to build. You're going to ensure that you strengthen your service team, right? Again, first, this has to do with making sure that events are set up and all the packs are printed off and people are confirmed, and a lot of that work's being done. And then also you strengthen your sales team. Once that lead developer becomes in a better position to sell and is selling, really, then they've earned themselves an assistant, right? And they go into a sales position and they get a lead developer. The service assistant goes into a service manager or some such title, relationship manager, and then they get an assistant. It's really, really important that the relationship manager be a real strong point person for people, for your clients in particular. And I did a whole video on how you turn over service to your service assistant. But yeah, it's important to remember that person is sort of protecting your calendar, is protecting your time. So very often they act as your assistant, and you know, when calls come in, they're going to be managing them often. Obviously this is all dependent on money, on making money and being able to afford this thing. You should always be working towards stability. So that's why I really love to help people get organized. I love to help people make sure they've got the roles and the functions defined in terms of how to do business and move ahead, so that they can correctly delegate and turn over responsibilities to the right person at the right time. In terms of getting bigger and beyond that, really what you're handling for the most part are bottlenecks, right? So doing a lot of data entry, doing research, recording the data, entering it, when you do a meeting, taking all the notes and making sure that those are entered into the client's folder or the prospect's folder digitally. Typically you want to type that stuff up, and you very often want to have a physical copy as well, but that's usually a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work for me, so that's why you handle that bottleneck, that area where your time is consumed by research and data entry and making sure that your funnel is growing, your audience is growing, making sure that email addresses are in the email list. And as we gather phone numbers and physical addresses, that all gets entered in, and that person goes into the drip campaign where you send a physical letter, all these various things, right? That's doing a certain amount of legwork, certain amount of work. You're handling that when you turn it over to an administrative assistant. And service is another area of work that you're handing over to somebody who can do service. And then lead development, that's a lot of work. It's a bottleneck, very often takes up a lot of your time, and you're turning that over too. So as you begin to expand your organization into each of the different areas, to make sure that you're executing on each of the different areas: executive, administrative, marketing, finance, production and delivery, quality control, and business development, you're going to see that there are certain areas in your organization where there are slows, where there's a lot of time consumption, where things are getting backed up or bottlenecked, and that's where you're going to hire, right? Hi. Morning. And another comment on this. So I have a friend, his name's Nick Taranzi, in Los Angeles, and he built a company. He had about 6 people, and he went from 6 people to 600, and then he sold the company for a lot of money, I think tens of millions. Anyway, so what he told me, he said, when you're hiring, because he had a software company, right? He says, when you're hiring, particularly, when you're growing and expanding, he said that there are certain specific criteria you need to have in mind, taking into consideration when you're bringing on new team members. And he said it had nothing to do with their knowledge about software or IT, right? Their technical know-how. It had everything to do with how they were going to be contributing to the group and contributing to the organization. So the first criteria was, were they sort of enthusiastic, have a pleasant nature, a good nature. The second was, were they willing to learn? Were they willing to study and learn? so they can understand the job and improve their ability to do the job. And then the last criteria was, were they willing to put their arm on the wheel, right? Get stuck in there and work, right? He hired, with those 3 criteria, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and the organization was so successful, he was able to sell it. Some of you guys, like me, are not looking to sell your organization, build it up and sell it. There may be some organizations that I do build up and sell, but I mean, I imagine to a certain degree we're doing our knowledge business because we love it, but also there are definitely going to be those who, you know, want to turn it over. I know people are transitioning out of one industry into what they love. You're definitely going to want to turn it over and transition from it, and indeed in that case you may very well sell it. But the point here is, when you're hiring people, you need to be much more interested in their nature, their good nature, their positivity, their enthusiasm, right? Their willingness to learn and study new things, and also their willingness to get stuck in, put their arm in, and get involved in doing the work and making sure that the work gets done and stuff happens. Because your organization will be held up by people who are complaining or miserable or always angry or always, you know, miserable. Your organization will be held up by people who are unwilling to learn new things and unwilling to study and apply new knowledge learned, and also people who are just unwilling to get in there and get the work done, right? That's what's going to stop your organization. So that's why, I'm pretty sure that's why that was his advice. Guys, look, it's wonderful talking to you. This is a sort of a longer video than I normally do, and I look forward to hearing your comments and your reactions. I hope this makes sense to you. I hope you find this very useful in building your organization. You know, well, I guess one other point, I always think of these things right at the end of the video. A comment on having family involved, right, or friends. So those criteria count and stick that I just mentioned, right? And those roles count and stick. So some people, I know I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying they've been offered all of this support from their family if they would just move back to the state from where they were from. And I'm skeptical. You got to make, that's one of the reasons why I want to hire people to be in a team when I'm doing my delivery and they get hired on a short-term basis, or if I'm consulting somewhere and there's like, we got to clean out all these boxes or reorganize a whole space or clear out a whole area of their building, you know, to open it up, then I want to hire people that will work for the short term, partly because I just want to see, are they enthusiastic? Are they willing to get stuck in? Are they willing to learn? Do they have to do it their way, or do they mind learning the right way, you know, the way that's more effective, let's say, and you get some experience. Now, family, you can hire a family and it's like, oh, you can forgive them, and oh, well, it's Johnny, and oh, he made a mistake, and you know, he's your brother or your cousin or whatever, right? You can get into trouble. You can get into serious trouble by allowing mess ups and mistakes and breakages to just become a part of your activity. I'm not saying automatically that families are mess ups. I'm just saying that they're not always enthusiastic, they're not always willing to learn and study and change and do what works, and they're not always willing to get stuck in, right? So I wouldn't automatically hire family or friends, you know. You could temporarily bring them on board and do an event, and then they prove to be all those things that we discussed, and then you bring them on. But also sometimes there's a bit of a status or significance issue. You know, a family member or partner wants to have significance, and that might necessarily be the role that you need, particularly early on. In some cases, families are awesome. I know my wife is fantastic at getting stuff done, and I can't wait for the day where we're in a position where she can be happy and comfortable to be working along with me. But that's not always the case. When I was consulting at a firm in the turn of the century, oh my God, when we went from 1999 to 2000, I think it was right about 2000, we would run into situations with our dentist clients that the organization's income just plummeted, and you know, people weren't re-signing and coming back. There was all kinds of difficulties, and it's unfortunate to say this, but it's just the truth. It was a fact. We found out, you know, we asked what was going on then in the organization, what happened right around then, and the dentist reluctantly admitted that his wife had fired their reception, and she had taken on reception. And unfortunately, she was a very dour woman, very sad, very serious, and would get angry, and no wonder. She would be rude and difficult with patients, setting appointments or making changes. She was rude to clients when they came in and wanting service. So they just wouldn't come back, or they wouldn't set the appointment, or they wouldn't show up. And that made things worse. So in that scenario, we just got them to hire a new employee, a new receptionist, took the wife out of the position, and boom, the organization, the dentistry recovered, like immediately, getting more clients in, getting repeat clients, repeat servicing, and everything was solved, right? So you got to be cautious of that. As much as you love somebody, as much as you want to help them, if they're, especially early on, if they're not going to be a part of the team and get the job done, then there just is no space for that, right? It's just not going to work. So it's much easier to make sure that the person has those 3 criteria I mentioned, in terms of their enthusiasm, their willingness to learn, and their willingness to get stuck in and get their arm on the wheel and push and do the job, right? Those are more important, to discover those things and then put them in the correct place where they're needed, and also where their talents lie. So that's it. I think it's probably my longest video. Hopefully, Linny, you don't mind that, and this gets posted, and I'll talk to you on the next side. Bye, guys.